Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Welcome to the Ryan Stick Show. It's been about a minute since we're broadcasting, but we are here and back. And I just want to say thank you to all the lovely people who have said all the lovely things about past broadcasts because you inspired me today to do a broadcast tonight. We're going to come back next week to do reviews of The Batman with Stranger Radio alumni Stephen Fairweather and Jesse Manderson. But tonight we are talking with the great podcast master himself, Chris Fafalios. Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you something. It's been a long 2 years, and there's been a lot of things and that keep us sane. And I gotta say, from the bottom of my heart, one of the coolest podcasts I've ever heard, especially as a lifelong songwriter and a lover of punk, both pop and crazy and metal and all that other shit. I gotta say, Chris Demakes a podcast is one of the finest podcasts on the internet I have ever heard, and the producer and his co-host Chris Fafalios is just a bucket of sunshine. And he also has another podcast called One Hit Thunder, in which that bucket of sunshine gets to rain a little bit of the rage that I'm sure that had existed in him, based on songs that both he loves and dislikes. I gotta say, the guest tonight, Chris Fafalios, is a fucking amazing dude. And not only that, he is the bass player of a band called Punchline, which my wife Melissa is obsessed with the song You Are My Universe. And she just plays it all the time and is dedicated and played it for her nephew. It's just absolutely amazing. And I'm going to bring Chris in right now. So without further ado, here's Chris Fafalios, podcast extraordinaire, wonderful human being, sick bassist, wonderful person. Here we go. Chris, how you doing?
Wow, what an intro. Can you walk around and introduce me everywhere I go?
Sure, I'll have a bullhorn. And
yes. If you could be my hype man, I think that was the most I've ever been hyped up. Thanks for that, Ryan Stick. What up,
no
man?
problem. I gotta say, we're just saying what's up, everybody. How you doing? Oh, Matt Kelly's in the house.
Oh, there's my boy.
Oh man, Matt Kelly. Speaking of, Matt Kelly is our friend in common, and what's amazing. You know how I know Matt? It's because Chris is just one of those dudes that if he knows someone's going to like something, regardless if he has any interest in it, he tags them. And I was interviewing Kirk Thatcher, the director of Muppets Haunted Mansion, co-writer of Muppets in Space, and Chris tagged Matt in it, knowing that Matt loves them Muppets.
He sure does.
And Matt, sure enough, in the comments section was the MVP and asked him all these rad fucking questions. And then eventually I had Matt on the show, and I'm so glad you guys are on. And I hope it's okay to mention to everybody your show, One Hit Thunder, which is fucking amazing, where you go through all these one-hit wonders of songs that people have loved but don't necessarily know a lot about. You guys dive into them, and I've learned so much about songs that I've heard my entire life. Before we talk about your lengthy musical career, Chris, could we please tell me the secret origins of you and Matt fighting crime together?
Wow, that's a good question. So I guess I met Matt because of Punchline. He liked our band. And then I first saw him. This is so weird. We were touring. We were in LA, I believe. And a mutual friend, Jonathan London, who runs the Geekscape network, I went with him to some sort of event. It was kind of like an open mic, I think, with people involved in Geekscape. And Matt Kelly went up there and played this song about, I don't know. It was something like raunchy. It was something very raunchy. He went up there and sang. I was like, what is this? And then he turned out to be a really, really nice guy. I'm sure that he could tell us more about exactly what he was playing. I just remember it being like, whoa, what? And then turned out he was a real nice guy. He liked our band, and it got to know him over the years, and we become really friends and even business partners and podcast partners and stuff. He's a good dude. Oh, it's the Geekscape comedy show, he's saying in the comments there.
There you go. Oh, cool. What's going on, Stefan? How you doing? Stefan's got the sickest collection of horror masks I have ever seen and props I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so that's how the two of you met. But you both have such a lengthy career in podcasts that you actually you're using your knowledge for good and you're using your powers responsibly, like a Peter Parker would. And you're kind of teaching people who don't know exactly how to make their podcast to perfection. You're running a business to help people do that. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so it's weknowpodcasting.com. We do everything that, you would need with a podcast. I don't know, every aspect of it, but just, there's a lot of podcasts out there that I think are just people hit record, do no editing, throw it out there, and then in turn, no one listens to it because it's not enjoyable to listen to. And then that person stops podcasting about after probably 4 or 5 episodes, then it's all over. I think that's the story behind like 99% of podcasts. And I don't know, some of these people have good ideas. They just don't know how to execute them. And between Matt and I made my first podcast, I think, when I first found out what a podcast was, maybe 2006 or 7, like in the Punchline van. I made a podcast called the Chris Fafalios White Van Podcast. And it was more along the lines of that throw and go, like just hit record and whatever happens. But I think I learned about it. I'm like, oh, this is just an internet radio show, and put some effort into it. And then I had a podcast years later with my good friend Mike. It was called Men in Their 30s Only. Uh, and it was kind of just two guys in their 30s just talking about life. And we did that for a really long time. And then, I took a little break, but got back into it with One Hit Thunder and Chris Demakes a podcast. And I just think it's cool. Just as you know, Ryan Stick, it's nice to have an outlet when you have something to say, or even when you don't necessarily have something to say, you can let someone else say something. You know what I mean?
I love talking to people. The main reason I started even the podcasting or the YouTube pages all these years ago is that I met Slipknot when I was like 15 and people didn't believe me.
Mhm.
So so then I just ran around with a video camera to prove it. And then by default, you kind of had to interview somebody as opposed to, hi, I'm a person with a camera for no reason. So it
Mhm.
was kind of just fell into that. But when it came to podcasting, I gotta say, I feel like when you guys were buying cars, I was in a horse and buggy, reluctantly climbing up a mountain,
Mhm. Right.
holding with a large case of oil and just
Uh-huh.
trying to preserve the old ways because I was just scared of the future. But now podcasts, I'm addicted to them. Chris, what was the first podcast that you ever heard that made
Ooh.
you fall hard into this world
Ooh,
as a listener before a performer?
wow, that's a good question. I never thought about what the first podcast I listened to was because, honestly, it might be Geekscape. It might be
Nice.
because Jonathan's been doing that for a long time. And I think we were on tour and he asked the guys in my band, hey, come be on Geekscape. And I think that may have been the first podcast I heard back before I really thought that it was a thing that was going to be a thing that everyone was going to listen to and know what it is. But otherwise, just in more recent years, I think I've gotten more and more into podcasts as I made more and more podcasts. I think I got into listening to more and more podcasts, and I go full gamut, Ryan. I'm all across sports, news. Every morning I listen to the New York Times The Daily, which is like one of the most popular podcasts. I listen to
Okay.
Bill Simmons sports podcasts. I listen to music-based podcasts, comedy podcasts. I like Comedy Bang Bang and associated podcasts, the full gamut. I think the only thing I don't really do, and you're not gonna like this, and Matt Kelly's not gonna like this, and I even shout out Geekscape, but I don't get down with like I don't like the Marvel and and the superheroes and stuff. I don't know, and I liked some comics growing up, but that's like my one exception is like the one thing. I don't know. I just don't care about. I don't care about it. I liked Into the Spider-Verse. I thought that was cool, but
You don't gotta like it though. That's the whole
yeah,
thing. Like we were
right.
talking about before, earlier on a podcast that I'll wait for you guys to mention that that I'm a guest on, is that
Oh yeah.
we live in this world right now where everybody is just checking boxes to see, like, like, I can only be friends with you as long as you agree
Oh,
everything with me. And I forget, I'm like, man, all my friends didn't like all the same stuff I did
how
when growing
boring
up.
would that be? How
Yeah.
boring you got to have some differences. No, don't get me wrong. I love movies and I love television. I love those things. Just not that in specific. I like to argue about things. I like to make
Hmm.
lists. I will argue about anything and I will make a top 5 or top 10 of anything because I think that's fun. I like being interested in things. And okay, I'll eventually watch this new Batman movie. I will watch it eventually because I will tell you, I don't like to not be part of the conversation. It's like the
Mhm.
shows that are popular. Of course, I loved Game of Thrones. Even these last HBO season, like I was up to date on Succession. I was up to date on Euphoria. Like even shows where I'm like, oh, I'm not so sure about this. I want to know what
Yeah.
people are talking about. So yeah, even the things I don't like. But I didn't like see the Avengers movies and stuff. Just I don't know. Just not that interested in it. I watched most of the Peacemaker show and just
Okay.
I'm like 5 episodes into it and everyone like loves it and thinks it's the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, I think this is stupid. I don't know. I don't know why it just doesn't appeal to me. Hey, to
Dude,
each his own.
I hate death metal. I don't like it.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't like singer like in general, and even though I know a lot of singers that sing like, Velociraptors from Jurassic Park, but it's just not my bag.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it's huge and everybody loves it. And I thought
Back
cosplayers
up
were
a second. Back up a second here,
yeah,
Ryan
yeah,
Stick.
yeah.
You think everybody loves death metal? Is
No,
that
but
what you
the people that do, I would like to be part of that conversation like you were saying, but
Okay, sure.
it's just not for me, or as my friend Dean would say, "It's none of my business." And I'm
Yeah,
like,
okay.
"Go for it. If people like things, let them like them." But, it's kinda good of you to be in this world of geeks surrounded by nerds such as myself and kinda stand your own and not just do it because we're doing it. It says a lot about you as an individual for
Well,
not bowing to peer pressure, you know what I mean? No one got you to smoke as a kid, you
right.
know?
Yeah,
Me
no, they didn't. I mean, I tried it. I tried to smoke cigs for, like, a couple days in college because I
Mhm.
thought it would look cool. It just makes me cough. I can't smoke
Okay.
cigs. But, I like plenty of geeky stuff. Just because I don't
Yeah.
like Marvel movies doesn't mean I don't get excited when Breath of the Wild came out, and I played it obsessively for, a year and could
Oh, this is
it was
my I have a
a com
you can't really see
whoa,
it, but I have a Zelda tattoo here carved into a pumpkin with a
nice.
Master Sword. I'm a diehard Zelda fan, like
Dude,
diehard.
do you think Breath of the Wild is the greatest video game ever made?
It might be because, like, Ocarina of Time was my obviously the masterpiece that was, and Link to the Past. I mean, like, the Zeldas that stand up. It's funny. It all comes from Link to the Past. They did, like, the same idea, the same amount of castles to do the thing in the middle. What I loved about Breath of the Wild is that you wake up in the future and you're like, "Who the fuck am I?" And
Yeah.
you're searching for your past, and I love the idea that you have to search for your memories and your sword can break. So all that shit that you kinda got used to in all the other games, like in Twilight Princess, you're like, "This is cool. This is like a really dark version of Ocarina of Time." Or, Wind Waker, "Oh, this is a really cute version of the Ocarina of Time." With Breath of the Wild, you're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And that feels good because man, when I first played that game, I'm like, go find Impa in the village. All right, cool. This will take a few minutes. 4 fucking days, dude. I'm running for 4 days and getting orbs and other shit. And I'm just like, I still haven't even found Impa yet, man. That's fucking nuts.
Dude, Breath of the Wild, the thing about it that I think is amazing is that
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful world. I feel like it's more beautiful than reality. And to just go to a top of a cliff and jump off of it and glide, it's just so satisfying. And I will say I'm not really a gamer. I'm very
Mm,
moderate on like I think Nintendo makes amazing stuff. Anything made by Nintendo, I feel like it's going to be pretty good. Otherwise, I'm not too interested. I mean,
yeah.
I like some sports games. I like Madden and stuff, but man, the Zelda games, and I guess they're making a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and that will be I will play it. I will play it instead of watching TV at night. That's what I will do. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not much of a gamer except for that. Uh
Have you played Hyrule Warriors? The
it,
God, I can't remember what it's called. It came out like last year or the year before.
yeah, I played it for like 5 minutes and I'm like, oh, this is just
Okay.
it just felt like a button masher or something. Am I
Sure,
right
sure.
about that? It was just like hordes of things came at you and you like blew them
Yeah.
all up. Well, I don't know. I guess I didn't give it a very fair chance, but I played it for like 5 minutes and I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was.
Cool. All right, fine. That's fine. But if you never want to play it and button mashers aren't your thing, at least on YouTube, like watch the story. Because if
Okay.
you're a Breath of the Wild fan, dude, it's so fucking cool. It is the war that happens before Breath of the Wild, in
Okay.
which in which you fail. It is that war where
Right.
you're meeting the people, you're telling them that they should, pilot the divine beast, you're keeping the band together, you're
Mhm.
watching Zelda try to be the legend of herself that she's supposed to live up to. And
Right.
I'm not going to give anything away, but it's just the direction it takes is really, really interesting. So if you don't like the button mashing aspect, the story aspect and the lore, considering if you love Breath of the Wild that much, it is interesting. And
Well,
it, you know,
Well, here's the thing. Here's another thing I
mm.
will say about it. And if anybody's watching this and you're like, "Oh God, would you stop talking about Zelda?" This is one thing I want to say about it is that that the puzzle aspect of it
Yeah.
is I felt when I played that game and I figured out the temple. What are they called in the game? The not the temples, the little,
Oh God, I don't remember
all
what
the things you had to
the
solve,
shrines. I think they're called
shrines, the
shrines. Yeah.
shrines, yeah. All the shrines was each one of them was like a more and more difficult to figure out puzzle, and it made
Yeah.
me feel like I was like using my brain and that I was strengthening my brain while playing a game, and I like that. It's like why I like my girlfriend and I will do crossword puzzles, and I'm like, this is good that we're doing this. It's good to use your brain, and I just think doing anything that makes you a little bit smarter or makes your brain a
Yeah.
little bit stronger. That's why I don't want to play Smash Brothers. You think I just
Gotcha.
want to go like this on the controller and like I don't want to do that. I want to.
I can live in both worlds, but I completely
Okay.
get what you're saying. It's much more satisfying that after spending 4 hours on a puzzle on something in Zelda, when it turns out you just have to put your sword into something or just move a block, there's
Right.
this satisfying feeling at the end of the day when you actually
Yeah.
get through that water temple.
Yeah. But
Um,
anyway, love it.
but anyway, and by the way, if you are ever play emulators, may I suggest The Adventures of Lolo, because if you like fucking puzzles,
Hmm.
that is porn for your brain, dude.
Wow.
It is just fucking puzzles. You're
Hmm.
like this little
Interesting.
ball named Lolo, and you're trying to save Princess Lala, and you're going through uh levels of these towers and stuff, and it requires almost Legend of Zelda like tact to, if you remove all swordplay and it's just the puzzle part. That's great. And my dad and I love it. And my dad loves puzzles too, loves Dr. Mario, all that. You
Nice.
know, takes some thoughts to get through it. And it's funny because he's a martial artist, and in life, punching solves everything. Well, not really, but the learning how to punch solves everything. And it's funny to see that, when it comes down to it, he's more of a thinker.
Interesting you bring up Mario because today's
Mm.
Mario Day, right?
Yeah, I saw that. That's
I
cool.
I saw a really funny TikTok today about it. It was two guys, and they were talking about it, like, "Yo, you realize like Mario just does whatever he wants." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Mario, today, what do you want to do today, Mario? I want to play tennis today." Okay, Mario, go play tennis. And then the next day, he's like, "I want to be a doctor today. I want to be, I want to drive a race car today." And they were doing it. I can't do a Mario impression, but it was really funny. But you get my point.
Nice.
Mario does it all.
He does. And speaking of does it all, so do you, Chris. I
Do
mean,
my best.
you're a bass player in a fucking awesome band.
Thanks, man.
Uh, but also, like, your infectious enthusiasm, and Chris Makes a Podcast is wonderful. We talked about how you and Matt started your thing. How did you and Chris exactly start Chris Makes a Podcast? Because it is a shining light in a very dark era of my life.
Thanks, man. Well,
Yeah.
I hope you're not in a dark era right now. I hope
No,
that
no, it's a little
yeah.
dark in here, but I turn on some
Okay.
lights, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. I've heard Chris talk about this before, but basically, he hired me to do a little animated video. I do a little bit of basic animation and stuff. And
And Chris does everything.
yeah,
Yes, please continue.
I went to YouTube University and learned how to animate some. But so he hired me to do something because he does custom songs for people. And then once I finished the video for him, he was like, "What do you think I should do to promote my songwriting business?" And I was like, "Well, have you thought about doing a podcast?"
Mm.
And I think that he kind of just, thought about it for a minute, kind of figured like, I've thought about doing that before, but then hit me up the next day and was like, hey, I do want to do a podcast. Can you help me do that? And I said, well, I think I said you should have a theme. You should stick to it. It shouldn't just be random talking. It should have you should stick to a theme. Your theme should be songwriting. And together we came up with the idea of focusing on one iconic song from an artist's back catalog. Of course, Chris had a nice Rolodex of friends from years of touring. So we instantly had that door open to some pretty awesome guests. Our first guest was John Feldman from Goldfinger, who not only is awesome in Goldfinger, but also is a very successful, huge producer. So right off the bat, we had him. And within the first 10 or 15 episodes, we had a lot of pretty big names in our world. By our world, I mean like punk rock, whatever you want to call it. I say like the Warped Tour world or whatever you want to call it. But we didn't want to just stick to that world either, as you know. We wanted to go beyond that. We know that our general fan base, that a lot of them come from the world of punk rock and associated styles of music, but I feel like everyone can also appreciate other styles of music, be it pop or modern rock or hip hop or R&B or really anything. I want there to be no limit on what type of artist we would have on, because I think there can be a good story behind any song. I think maybe, I don't want to like single any styles out that I wouldn't do. I mean, we did death metal. We had Obituary on. We did.
I don't hate it that much, but
yeah, right. Yeah. No, but I get it. I'm not a metalhead at all. That's what's crazy too, is that Chris is very much an 80s hair metal guy.
Same.
But I really am not at all. At that time, I mean, I was 6 or 7 years younger than him, but I at that time loved Boys to Men, and I loved just pop and R&B music when I was growing up, and eventually I discovered punk rock. But at that time when hair metal was popular, I would have rather been listening to Belle Biv DeVoe or something. So, but now when these guys from these 80s metal bands come on and then I hear them talk about music, Kip Winger is a good example. Didn't really like Winger, but then I heard him talk, and then he's literally playing on the episode, and then I'm thinking about the song. I'm like, damn, this song's amazing. And that seems to be what happens every time one of these guys come on. Chris will be like, hey, I got this guy from an 80s metal band. And I'm like, okay, cool. But by the end of it, I end up being a fan pretty much every time. Yeah.
Well, that's good. But Chris, I got to tell you, man, I was a piece of shit when I was a teenager.
Whoa.
When it came to my musical horizons. I was one of those punk dickheads who just wanted to hear fucking punk rock. And anytime a band like Yellow Card or Newfound Glory came out, I thought it was my responsibility to shit on it, because I'm like, yeah, they're just sellouts. And I'm like, and why was I like that? Why did I let myself think that way? Because the guys in Rancid are way richer than those guys are. And it's really funny about that, because it's our perceptions, and it's funny how we like to compartmentalize things and make sure that it's up to us to be the most, if someone else comes in, we have to keep it to ourselves. And when a band makes it bigger, it's like, no, AFI, you betrayed your hardcore fans. And as an older person, I'm just like, fuck, that's ridiculous to try to keep your favorite artist in a box like that. Because frankly, listening to Yellow Card and listening to the Newfound Glory episodes, I found not only did I love the songs now, but I understood where they were coming from. And these guys just loved that music. It wasn't kind of like, do this and you'll get famous overnight, kids. It's like, no, they fundamentally love pop punk music. And it's really nice to be this age to just say to myself, fuck, Ocean Avenue by Yellow Card is the best chorus. Oh my God. What a 1-2 punch it was. And how even they, kids listening to Chris Demakes the podcast, even they, up until the recording studio, were trying to figure out this monster chorus, and it didn't come right away, and it almost didn't happen. And stories like that are the stories that make Chris Demakes the podcast so fucking interesting. Do you have like a top episode of Chris Demakes the podcast that you can think of, that where when you were editing or listening to it as it was happening, that made you go, shit?
Oh man, there's so many. There's so many that I really, really like a lot. But okay. So I was all about getting this female artist from Brooklyn named Verite. I had been such a huge fan, discovered her, I guess it was summer of 2020. Yeah, it was first summer of the pandemic, and just her music, just, I don't know, everything that was going on in my life, I just related to it so much. Every song she released, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And outside of, it's like a completely different scene of music. She's very popular. She had one of her songs, like, she covered a song by the 1975, Somebody Else. She did a cover of that had like 200 million Spotify plays, but her original songs had millions of plays too. But no one that I really knew who she was, minus people I showed her to, and then they would either like it or not. But just electronic based pop singer with just really hard hitting lyrics and very emotional delivery and amazing voice. Just instantly became one of my favorite songwriters. And I don't know, for like a year straight, not straight, but like every few months I would hit her publicist up again and be like, hey, would Verite want to come on? And she finally agreed to and came on. And there's been probably 4 or 5 episodes now. Hers, Bill Stevenson's, guy from RX Bandits. These people that came on and really opened up, and you really felt the emotion come out of them as they're telling the story behind the song. Those are the episodes that I'm like, wow. First of all, I feel honored, or however you want to say it, that someone would come on our show and open up in that way. And part of me feels like when they do that, it's like they've wanted to tell this story. It's just they didn't have a place to get into it like that. And I feel like Chris does such a good job as a host, letting people tell that story. And if they don't have some deep emotional story to tell, yeah, you can focus on the chord structure and the inspiration and the the layout of the song, the harmonies, which that stuff's interesting too. But when people open up and talk about a personal story behind the song, those are the episodes that really stick out to me.
Of course. And Rain Maida from Our Lady Peace, Canada represent.
Yeah.
He was on the show last month, and his exact words, I think, were, "This is so cool. I never get to do this. No one's ever asked me what these words meant before."
Right.
And it's funny because that song's like 25 years old.
Yeah.
And it's, for no one to ask him about that in 25 years is pretty profound.
Dude, I mean, we've had so many people say that. And also a thing that Chris is pretty good at, and it's happened on a lot of episodes, is that he'll tell people something about their song and they'll be like, wow, I never thought about that before. And, perfect example, when we had Mark Hoppus on and Chris told him like the chorus hits at 23 seconds into the song, and he just started laughing. And it's like, he's like, wow, I never thought about that before. That's like so quick to the chorus. And we actually have an upcoming episode where someone beat that. They got to the chorus even quicker than that.
Okay.
Not counting songs where the songs start with the chorus, but we had a song, which is, I'm actually editing. I took a break from editing this episode to come on here. But it's a good one that everyone's really going to like. Yeah, man, I got to say that most of these episodes, I really like them. It's hard for me to rank. I mean, in some of those earlier episodes too, and we had Jim Adkins from Jimmy Eat World on. I'm like, damn, this is awesome. So many bands that I love talking about songs that I love. Yeah. It's cool. It's cool to get to do that.
When I first discovered the podcast, in fact, I think it's because honestly, like, Chris shared something on his page, like, and it just said, oh, we had a podcast. And I'm like thinking, well, podcasts are easy to get. Just open up the podcast app, type it in, push subscribe, and there you go. And then you see the guest list, and I'm just like, holy shit, John Feldman. Like,
Mhm.
and John Feldman talking about here in your bedroom, I'm like, fuck, that's rad. And then
Mhm.
hearing about John Feldman, how he produced all the Goldfinger records and how he like fell into producing what they used and all that.
Mhm.
It's there's so much to these songs that where it's just like when I'm used to a song, when it's been 30 years, 25 years, and the song is just part of my life, much like wrestling, I don't like watching wrestling anymore as much as I like hearing about the wrestling I used to watch and why it happened.
Mhm.
Why did they do it this way? Why was this person the champion? What kind of backstage politics was happening because this person was addicted to painkillers and this person was fucking the boss's daughter? That is
Mhm.
more interesting to me than the show they're actually putting on. So the
Right.
same thing with the songwriting. As a songwriter, not a good songwriter comparison to these legends, but I'm like, I love learning about what makes these people tick because it makes them more accessible than they've ever been to me.
Mhm.
Because when I was a kid, I just thought rock stars were fucking gods that walked among that lived on Olympus, and us mortals were just staring up at them on the posters on our wall because there's no internet and no real FaceTime with any of these stars. So the mysticism of what their publicists wanted us to see were the only interpretations we got of these artists. So it's
Mhm.
really nice to see that you pull back the curtain so much. I asked you about your favorite episode, but is there a particular musician in general that you walked away from this being like, holy shit? Besides the 80s hair metal, of course, but holy shit. I love this person as a human. I thought their songs were good, but fuck, what a person.
Well, honestly, that's happened a lot on
Mm,
this, and one thing I really realized that I don't think yeah, of course, everybody especially when you're younger, you have that idea, but everybody you know how many people I know, and I'm sure you two do too, Ryan, and I'm sure anybody who's watching or listening to this knows, who are amazing musicians, amazing songwriters, just never got a break or
yeah.
life got in the way and they couldn't pursue it. Everybody that comes on the show and has been fortunate enough to have a hit song or multiple hit songs,
Mm,
they're a person who is talented for sure, but also somewhere along the line, the stars aligned, they got a little bit lucky, and unless they're a complete jerk, they realize that. And 99% of the people on here, I think, and that's not to take anything away from hard work or raw talent. I'm not taking anything away from that. Those things are important. But I do think that people realize that luck is a part of it. And what I've realized is that there's not too many people that I would necessarily be starstruck by now. If anything,
mm.
like, I mean, maybe Paul McCartney or Bjork or something like people that seem like otherworldly. I might be a little bit, but most people are just normal people that just happen to be good at writing songs, and that's all there is to it. And I kind of feel a little bit differently about people that I guess I like a little bit of showmanship and rock stardom in certain aspects, but I don't know. I like when people can just be pretty normal and turn it off too. That's endearing to me. And that's how almost all these people have been, that we've had on the show.
I think from what I've heard from a lot of rock stars I love and admire is that the that embrace the theatrical aspect, even though they're not wearing a cape on stage, they're still aware that the rock star persona they portray is a character.
Mhm.
And if you look at Alice Cooper, he really understands the whole Superman and Clark Kent aspect or Batman and Bruce Wayne aspect to his personality. When he
Mhm.
comes off stage, he isn't Alice Cooper. Alice lives on stage. Like that's what happens. And if he was walking around in a straitjacket all fucking day, I'm sure he doesn't do that. He goes and golfs.
Right, right. Well, and
Mm,
I do like I guess I should say this in the right way. I like authenticity. I like to know that what is coming through in the music is
mm,
real. That makes it, when you hear these stories behind the song and it comes from a real place, and especially if you can relate to that story, oh man, that makes all the difference in the world, right? Like to know that someone else experienced something like you did, and that the song they wrote made you feel better or made you feel like someone else, like you weren't alone in what you
mm.
experienced. That is That is really awesome. And dude, I love showmanship on stage. I love a great stage show. I've and I love also, this is really, really important to me, man. And is I like to know what's going on in music. I every week,
Yeah.
I use Apple Music, and you get like a curated playlist to your taste, and each week. And my taste tends to be, honestly, it's a lot of like pop music, it's a lot of R&B music, and every week I listen to that. Like I'll be running on the treadmill or something, and I'll add several songs like as I hear them, and that's how I discover new artists all the time. And I think that it's very easy to fall into a trap of just liking what you liked and thinking that everything newer is inferior to that, when actually it's kind of, I'm not going to say it's the opposite, but there is just as good of music coming out now as there was at any point. You just got to know where to
Mm.
find it. And I think being open-minded to new music keeps your gears turning and keeps you creative. It's like making podcasts, man. If you don't listen to some great podcasts, you're not going to get inspired or click with ideas that be like, oh, that gives me a good idea of what I could do on my podcast, and
Mm.
keeps you pushing further and further musically. Dude, are you familiar with my new band obsession? I've liked them for years. My bandmate and friend Steve turned me on to them, but they just released a new album. This band, Gang of Youths. Do you know who Gang of
No,
Youths is?
I haven't heard that because I'm an angry old man yelling at a cloud that
Oh,
you're using as
dude.
a. No, I'm actually no. I'm much more open minded after listening to all the Chris Demakes the podcast.
Good.
Newer artists that you feature, including, and forgive me for not remembering his name at the second, but he's that really fucking cool guy from Brooklyn who does
Des Rock.
everything.
Des
Des
Rock.
Rock's fucking rules.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, check out Des Rocks after watching this on YouTube. His fucking The Mickey Mouse Club song is fucking rad. It is
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah.
I mean, I think some of the, and he's doing well, but he's definitely not like a household name yet or anything. But
Yeah,
I do
not yet.
think that's important to us too, is those artists that we hear and we're blown away by. Because I told Chris, hey, let's have them on, because then when they're huge, we could say, hey, we had them on our show first, and maybe they'll come back on. And also, I don't know, I like to, I mean, just every episode we do too, I think it's important to do the band you might not know
Yeah.
segment. That was very important to me. Just, I don't know, I would love that. If I was a fan of Less Than Jake, I was a fan of Chris, or I was just a fan of the
Mm.
podcast or a fan of songwriting, and then I heard my song on the show, I would think that's really cool. So that's something that we will always do. We're whatever, close to 100 episodes in, and so we featured close to 100 bands that people may not have heard before. It's important to me.
Speaking of bands you not have heard before, ladies and gentlemen, just based on the work, just work I've been doing recently. I'm a producer of a show called the Rockman Power Hour, and this week we had for International Women's Day, we had a monster episode with 5 guests, including Taylor from the Pretty Reckless, Morgan from the band Kitty, but also
Nice.
three artists I had never heard before, and I fucking love it when this happens because it is my job to edit these interviews, and it takes a while to edit interviews. So I became, very not attached, but very familiar with the voices that you hear. And I'm like, wow, let's check this out. And there is the lead singer of this band called Gold, and it's GGGOLDDD. And it's kind of like if Portishead and Trent Reznor like made a side project
Ooh.
together. And it's like literally this heavy fucking album they just put out about how she survived like some traumatic abuse. And you're listening to it, and it's just like, holy shit, this checks all the boxes of musical stuff I like. But unless they were a guest and I pivoted this way, they would have just passed me by. And it's
Mhm.
really cool when that happens. And it's important, like you, and having people on, it's really important that people just put themselves out there and are kind of like, send out that smoke signal in places out of your comfort zone, because you could get new fans that way, because I fucking love gold right now. And
Mhm.
also we had this artist named Candle, like Kandle, and she's been at it for like 10 years, and her fucking music's awesome too, and it's a little bit more weird, trippy rock and roll. It's fun. It's really, really cool. So I just loved learning about all this new music this week. And it's interesting how, in a world of just digital downloads and everything is everywhere, it's hard to have that relationship with music the same way as when your friend would pass you a cassette on the schoolyard, and you'd have this conversation about it, and you'd hold this physical cassette containing the secrets of the universe. And I'm like, that's how I found out about Metallica and Green Day and all these other bands where you have that older sibling with their mystical record collection. And I'm
Right.
just like, I really wish there was a way to put value into music again that isn't so like coming at you at all times, at all volumes. Like, it's I don't know, with the pandemic it hasn't helped, but I did love just going to random festivals when I was a kid, staring at a stage and just, there's a new band you might like for the rest of your life because you looked in this direction at that
Mhm.
moment.
Right. I mean, that in essence is what I do with these, and also friends will text each other songs here and there, and
Mm.
I think that's important. I find out about some new music that way too, and that's kind of what with playlists of artists that are recommended to me based on other things I like and listen to. I find out about new ones. That's kind of what you're saying. I just like you turn your head and watch a stage at a festival. I'm just turning it on, and if it catches my ear when I'm doing something, I think just having music going a lot is important to me. And I like variety in that. I like my
Mm.
dude, I have a playlist that I call Songs That Move Me, and I just that's the playlist I've kept going. Every song could be a new song, could be an old song I haven't thought about in a while. It could be an old song I never knew, and I just it's new to me. There's no rules to it. It's just if I
Mm.
like a song, it catches my ear, I add it to it, and then it's like 400 songs or something now at this point. But then if I'm doing something, it's I'm gonna clean or I'm gonna make dinner, and I put my studio speakers on and I hit shuffle on that, and it's just this giant playlist of songs where I don't know what's gonna come, but I know every song on it at one point or another made an impression on me, and it becomes like the soundtrack to my life, and that soundtrack to my life just kind of grows. So, uh, you know, I think that's kind of a neat way to do it, kind of curating my life playlist.
I think it's really important that and it's fucking great, man. Kids these days, they don't do that stupid shit that I used to, like, oh, I hung out with the punk rock kids and we only listened to punk rock music and
Yeah.
stuff until everyone got drunk and we put on Backstreet Boys. But it's really cool that kids like don't really know the idea of, particular scenes because of the internet. The internet is just available and ready to everybody. That I will say, like, the best positive aspect of that is that, they will most likely listen to 7 varieties and styles that day, because we they weren't taught to stay in their corner or put baby in a corner. They weren't taught that. They were kind of taught, hey, everything is available here. And I will say that's good for the future. But I also really like the fact that you guys started on Chris Makes a Podcast interviewing all these essentially Chris's friends, but then really did venture into this different styles, because it made an old man like me, you know, broaden his horizons, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I said, I was at a party 2 months ago, and I was playing Des Rock. So I was like, I saw my ex girlfriend there, and I'm like, holy shit, you would fucking love this, and put it
Nice.
on.
Nice.
And it's
So
and, and
that's awesome.
and it's exciting, when someone's gonna fucking like something.
Yep. Yep.
Like,
Exactly.
you're one of those type of people that get fucking jazzed if you like hear a band and you're probably like, holy shit, this person would love it. Do you send them the music? Do you send them the music right away? Are you a share as such like that?
I absolutely am. And it's funny too that once again, my bandmate and friend Steve I want to go back to this Gang of Youths band that I love.
Sure, let's do it.
He told me about him years ago, sent me a song.
Yeah.
The song is called, what is it called? Marigold, I think it's called. Maybe that's what it's called. Magnolia or Marigold, something like that. The title of the song has nothing to do with it, with what the lyrics are.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Love this song, had it on playlists for years, but didn't dig in further to this band. Then they just released this new album like last month. Yeah, in the last couple weeks. And I just happened to be on YouTube, clicked. I was like, okay, I want to check out this new Gang of Youth song. And it was a 7-minute song. It's actually the last song on the album. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the best song I've heard in a decade. And
cool.
I instantly sent it to Steve. I'm like, dude, you got to experience this song. He's like, I'm walking in the park right now. It's a sunny day. I said, perfect. And then, I was glad to like tell him about a band that he told me about. And then went down the rabbit hole of watching live performances of this band. I'm like, I believe this is the best band on earth right now. They're an Australian band, and the whole album is about the guy's dad dying. And I know that sounds like a bummer, right? But it's more just like a celebration of his life, I would say.
Yeah.
But the songs are so good, and the music video is unbelievable, and the live performances, I mean, they play with like, an orchestral section. The lead singer is a really eccentric on stage with his dances and everything. There's a really good live performance of them from Colbert like last month.
Cool.
And I just can't say enough about this. And I said, I am the king of bold statements. I know that. I've been called out about that before. But I think we're 22 years into this century. I think this album, it's called Angel in Real Time by Gang of Youths. I think it's album of the century so far. And before that, I guess it hasn't been 10 years yet, but the Bon Iver 22 a Million, I thought was the album of the century before that. So it's just like mind blowing. And it's so cool to me that a band that's relatively new in the grand scheme of things. I mean, they've put out a couple albums now. They've been around for a while, but who put out an album just in the past couple weeks, I think it's one of the best albums ever. I think and that's inspiring to me. And that makes the gears in my head go. And that makes me want to make more music. It's like everything else, man. I think if you shut that part of yourself down where you're open to new everything, new music, anything artistic, TV shows, books, movies, anything that inspires you to then create, or if you're just inspired in life in general, if you're not an artist, but that inspires you that day, makes your day better or something. I think that's awesome. I think that's great. I think that's the way to be.
For sure. And it's, we live in a cynical world in a sense that it's very cool to hate everything. Like, that's it. Like, we are being taught all the time with videos, like the videos that get the most views. Dude, this video would be seen a lot more if it was called Chris Fafalios totally destroys Ryan Stick.
I know.
Dude, like that twist. It's like, we're living in a world of Batman, but we really need to be a little bit more Superman. We need to see the bright side of things, because you can't all be Batman at once. It doesn't work. We need to have the light and the dark sometimes, and I'm really glad that you're representing that light.
Well, I'm not trying to make it out like I'm some. I have my moments. Believe me, I'm
know
not like,
they're on One Hit Thunder. It's
yeah,
hilarious.
right. I talk some shit on there. Sometimes I don't like something, and I want to make it clear. I've been trying to make it more clear lately that just because something doesn't appeal to me doesn't mean it's not good. It just means
it's really funny. It was really fucking funny when you really go off on it. What did you go off on? Oh my God. One of the highlights of Christmas was when you went off on the fucking the fucking song, The Christmas Shoes. Oh my God. It was hilarious.
That song's terrible, but
yeah,
I'm not trying to make it out like I'm whatever, but One Hit Thunder, I do think we give everything a fair shake.
Yeah,
for sure. Like, we don't come in just like preconceived notions, whatever we thought of this, we're going to keep thinking of this. We we dive in, we listen, and then we debate. And then, dude, there's been episodes where I wasn't a fan of a song. Then we dove into it. We got to the nitty gritty of it. And by the end of the episode, I'm like, you know what? I like this song now. Perfect example, Dishwalla, Counting Blue Cars. Never really cared for that song.
Mm.
Then dove into the song and the lyrics and what it was about. And then I was like, whoa, I actually like this a lot. And then it was funny too, because the bassist of Dishwalla listened to that episode, and then he came on as a guest and got to like talk to him about like, hey man, sorry I judged your band before I really knew anything about you guys. But it was funny. But I think being open-minded is pretty good, man. And I think you're in our Chris Demakes a Podcast Facebook group and stuff. We try to keep it pretty positive in there, right? Like music conversations. And I know there's a lot of other stuff we should get into. And I'm not trying to say that other things in the world aren't important, but I think it's a place people can go if you want to just talk about music. And, you know, I think that's a good thing sometimes.
I think in a world where people are very serious about a lot of things, it is very important to just have like a little oasis when you're just walking around in a desert of despair. It's like, okay, the world's going to be serious if we bring this up or not. It is kind of nice to just take a break, because and then you're in this place where you're with people just talking about what you have in common, as opposed to what you find different about each other, or what you disagree about. It actually is kind of nice to just get back to basics and just say, okay, we know what makes us different, but let's talk a little bit more about what makes us the same, because that's really the true spirit of humanity.
Sure.
Yeah, we're not.
And I like a heated debate. I like a heated debate. That's fun.
But on the internet, it doesn't work though, because you're not hearing context. You're not hearing the sound of voices. You're not hearing the warmth of another human being. Like I could argue with you for an hour about something, but we'd be smiling by the end of it. When you read it and someone's attacking you, you're reading it with the most antagonistic tone that anybody has ever said to you, being like, I could say, fuck you, man, but you're reading like, fuck you, man. It's like, well, fuck you too, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm long past the arguing on the internet. Long. I mean, I'm talking a decade past. The only exception is, what I mean is, like, if somebody wrote something really disgusting or horrible or ignorant on the internet, you know what I would do? And I would see people like maybe disagree with this. I would just unfriend them. that's been my go-to, just because, like, whatever. But my exception is if I write something, and I don't think I write bad stuff, but if I write something and somebody says something on my post, when I'll argue. But if you say so, there's just lines I have of things that I won't tolerate: ignorance or hate or things like that. I mean, we lived through like still living through a rough time down here in the States, as far as a lot of divisive type stuff, and like easily get we won't go down that road necessarily on the Ryan Stick show right now. But
no, the Ryan Stick is a warm blanket oasis, or a pint of beer if you drink with your buddy in a bar before you go back to the arm wrestling tournament.
I thought you Canadians were really mellow, but then I saw you guys got some wild shit going on up there too. So I don't think that we're alone. I think we're rubbing off on you a little
bit. We have our boots, like we really, we have our fisticuffs, we have our differences, but
sure.
I actually, true story. I'm not gonna get into it live on the internet, but a friend of mine had words we needed to say to each other, and I said to him, I'm like, you know what the best way to mend this is? Let's have beers together like outside in a snowstorm. And we actually did that. We're like, what is the most Canadian stereotype thing that none of us have either done, but we could probably do, because regardless of what we're talking about, we could be giggling at the silliness of what we're doing. We literally did that. And it was like, I'll never forget that. It was another thing about just life in general is that I love it when enemies become friends, even in movies and shows and all that stuff. And I love that. In fact, some of my best friends in the world, when I first met them, I'm like, fuck this guy or
Right.
fuck this girl. And
Yeah.
it's really, but then a 27-year relationship comes from like
Right.
that slight animosity in the beginning. I like to call it the Cobra Kai effect.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You mean Johnny and Daniel.
Yeah.
Will they or won't they be friends is what I want to know.
I think they should just start making out. Like
Yeah.
let's just update this. All
Yeah,
that
yeah,
tension's there for a reason.
yeah.
Um, so dude, we talked a lot about podcasting, but we have not talked about the amazingness that is Punchline yet. Punchline, amazing band. The band's been around forever, but at the same time, like, it must be interesting because Chris Demakes a podcast, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of like giving Punchline a little bit of attention in places that they normally wouldn't have, just basically mentioning on the show. I know I personally found out about Punchline through Chris Demakes a podcast,
Nice.
and it must get, and you had your singer on it talking about the song Universe, but he wasn't exactly in the first 4 episodes. Did you have any hesitation to dangle the Punchline thing in your guest list? Because because you don't seem like the type of person that screams, me, look at my band, look at my band, look at my band. Even
Look,
though it's a necessary evil for all performers to fucking do.
isn't that crazy?
I know.
Isn't that crazy that as a person in a band or any artist, that part of what you have to do is exactly what you just said. You have to go like, "Hey, look at me. Look what I'm doing." And like it's you got to put your pride aside and like be like, "Okay, I'm okay with that." And I just
Mhm.
think that Punchline will have this summer will be our 25-year anniversary in it. And I think that just from the get-go, from the early years, we knew that that's what you had to do if you wanted, if you love making music and you want to keep doing it, you need people to like you and come to your shows and buy your albums. So I think we just instantaneously like were able to push that whatever. But I mean, it's like, yeah, you're trying to sell what you do and try to, it's not an easy thing to do. Like, hey, you should listen to me sing and dance. You should really do that. Come pay to see me do that. I know that that's a weird thing, but everybody's used to it and people enjoy it. I enjoy
Yeah.
bands and music and comedy and movies and TV shows. Like I want to, so I get why people would like it. And I just hope that I can create something or be part of creating something that people like. But yeah, I feel like I lost my train of thought there, Ryan.
Oh, it's all good.
What did you originally ask me there?
Just well, the band's been around forever, and
Oh, as far as the podcast.
yeah, as far as the podcast, like, I'm so glad you did the Punchline episode, because that's how Melissa actually edited a video for her nephew, well, for her brother, about the relationship he has with her nephew, and it's fucking adorable. And they used the song Universe, and
Nice.
it's because she really loves Angels and Airwaves, and I'm like,
Ooh,
this is an Angels and Airwaves ish song,
hmm.
and
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
new and it's cool. And anyway, can you please tell me the story, just as I plug my computer in before it dies? Can you please tell me the story about the decision to include Punchline into Krista Makes a Podcast lineup?
Yeah, I think that was like somewhere in the first 20 some episodes. I mean, we were looking for guests and we had at that point we had a few guests of bands and artists that were somewhere in the size of Punchline as far as popularity or whatever. And it was like, it was kind of like a gimme in a way. It was like, oh, let's do let's do a Punchline song. And
Mm,
I knew that and I mean at that point too, the podcast was still kind of new.
yeah,
And we knew that we do a Punchline episode, the Punchline fans will then find out about the podcast.
there you go.
It works both ways when you have guests on.
You've had a 25-year career. You have your own fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, for sure. And every band and artist we've had on has their fans, and it's a two-way street. Like we have a nice core listener base on the podcast, and they like you're talking to me about Des Rocks. You wouldn't have known if it wasn't for Chris Makes a Podcast. So
100%.
so the artist benefits from it, but also the podcast benefits from these people posting like, "Hey, I was on this podcast." It's a two-way street, So that was my thought as far as that. Hey, I want to mention something real quick, podcast wise and punchline wise.
Sure.
So I said Punchline's about this July will be our 25-year anniversary, and we have a lot of things to go along with that. But the first thing is, if you like podcasts, search for a band called Punchline.
Oh,
which is
nice.
the new Punchline audio documentary podcast. Right now, it's just a little 2-minute intro episode, but we're putting a lot of work and effort into that. And I think that our band has a very unique, interesting, wild, crazy story that's unlike any other bands. And it's a process getting this thing together because we're getting everyone who was there at every step of the way involved in it. And so if you like podcasts and you happen to be listening to this, maybe drop a little subscribe to that, because I'm putting my heart and soul into that one.
Give me a minute.
Doing it right now. A band called Punchline.
I'm doing it. I'm actually doing it though.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I'm not gonna. Of course, because then that spares me. Because I was going to ask you, how did Punchline start? But instead of asking you that,
you'll find
people
out.
can listen to it in proper detail instead of the Cliff Note version that you would give now. You know?
I mean, the most Cliff Note version I can tell you is, being a band this long, when we started a band, we had demo tapes. And then we were excited that we had CDs. And then we did the DIY touring like crazy, then got signed to a label, and then saw while we're on that label, we saw the way the music industry was going to, at that point, iTunes, and then streaming, and then the reemergence of vinyl. We've been every step of the way except 8 tracks have been part of our musical journey, or whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of real human stuff that goes on along the way. As you can imagine, people in a cramped space together for 25 years, and the things that would happen, and the emotions and the drama that goes along with that. So, I think we had a story to tell, and we're going to tell it on that podcast.
That's crazy. And especially if you do the 25-year deduction from now, it's that was a pretty interesting time to be a punk band. And what's interesting is that, as much as I'm an old man, internet, I'm telling you right now, I'm just a fucking old man. And when I see this, I'm just like, hey, it wasn't like my day. But I'm like, but people like Machine Gun Kelly and Willow Smith, they're putting out all this pop punk content, and their fucking views are insane. They got like 7 million views for songs that are all right. But
but back up a little bit here.
But
here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about that.
Yeah,
is that those are two people that are like celebrities beyond music. Willow Smith is Will Smith's daughter, and I actually think she's pretty good. I think one of her songs is she had a song called "Wait a Minute" that was it was actually more of like a pop song. It was like before like the I guess her pop punk route or whatever, but and I really liked it. And I didn't even know it was Willow Smith. It was just because it was just Willow, and I had heard it like on a playlist, and I liked it. And as far as like Machine Gun Kelly, I mean, he was a guy who like rapped, and then he was like kind of an actor, and now he like is in a relationship with Megan Fox. He's like a celebrity beyond that. I think he's terrible.
Okay, there we go.
I can't get in. Yeah, like if you want me to talk shit, that guy, that's like, but it's like a whole different thing. Like I don't even consider that like part of. That's like a confusing thing where it's like a mix of like celebrity and like tabloid, and I don't even know what that is. That's not. I don't think that anyone is out there like gonna give him album of the year, or like talk about his music is like something serious. I think it's just he's just a guy who's famous. Maybe young girls think he's hot. I don't know what the deal is there. He's like a tall blonde guy with tattoos who just I don't know. He sounds very manufactured. Is all I hear there. I don't really. I guess Willow Smith, and both of those people, I mean, Willow Smith, I do think she's talented, but also it probably helps to have millions of dollars at your disposal. Like if you want to pursue that route, like that's definitely a huge leg up, I would think, or an advantage. I mean, maybe people would argue that it's a disadvantage to be the kid of a famous person. I don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting conversation. But I think those two, I get what, did they collaborate on a song or something? Is that why
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Look,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm fully admitting that maybe I'm an old piece of shit about these things, but Willow Smith did this song with Avril Lavigne, and it's called "Grow," and I'm like, if you weren't fucking famous and you weren't singing a song with Avril Lavigne, my judgment on it, it's not about Willow. Willow's fine, whatever. She's a young, beautiful, talented girl. I'm saying from a songwriting perspective, this wouldn't make it as a B-side as your average great pop punk band.
I'm gonna have to hear it. I can't judge without hearing it.
From a pure composition factor, but whatever. And I'm admitting, once again, might be just an old man about this, but if it had the caliber, let's say, as My Friends Over You or Ocean's Avenue or even Perfect or Shut Up by Simple Plan, or just like one of those great pop punk hooks, I'm just kind of like, this is kind of like pop punk, I guess.
Well,
like, okay,
here,
check all the boxes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean,
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting is that some of those songs that you said, I think people were definitely thinking that at
I know,
the time,
at the time,
including probably
me.
this guy.
Including me. Yeah.
And Avril Lavigne, like, I kind of feel like people, and rightfully so, she just really, I didn't hear it yet, but she released an album and people seem to be liking it a lot, and she gets a lot of respect. But I feel like I've seen people liking it and happy about it. I haven't seen any shit talking on it. I really haven't. I mean, maybe I'm not looking at the places where people talk shit, but at the time, that Skater Boy song, that's a really bad song.
Oh, it is.
That's
it still is.
But then time goes on, people have memories associated with it, whatever. I can look at that song and go, oh, that's just like a pop song it's like a teeny bopper song. I don't think it's, but then she had that Complicated song, which I actually think is a really good song.
I think Complicated's a great song. I think I'm With You is a great fucking amazing song. But here's the thing, whenever they tried to really shell out the pop punk factor, it just felt really manufactured anger to me. It didn't seem authentic. It seems like, how lame it is to be like, oh, it's 3:30, time to break the guitar. That type thing. But
that's Machine Gun Kelly in a nutshell.
But there you go. I think that's the part that I don't like about the newer watered down of the watered down of pop punk thing.
Yeah, that's the overproduced major label whatever. That's not made for us. That's not.
It's none of our business, as a wise man once said.
But and that's what tends to make me hate that term pop punk. My friend Matt Kelly knows that I hate that term, and of course people are going to say that Punchline's pop punk. That's always been a label we're under, but it's a nightmare of mine to think that somebody who has never heard us before, they're going to go, oh, Punchline, they're a pop punk band. It's a nightmare of mine for them to think that we sound like Machine Gun Kelly. that is a nightmare. But people also use that term for some pretty cool bands that are newer.
It's a blanket term.
Very much.
That the same thing with boy band. It's like, I happen to think that whoever wrote the Backstreet Boys songs were very good at it, because even to this minute, I can hear half of a chorus and I could tell you everything else about it just based on how easy it was to swallow, but at the same time, how memorable the choruses are. I have this thing about One Direction where I'm like, am I an old man because I don't like this? Or is it because there's 5 members of this group, but they all sing exactly the same way? Where before I knew One Direction was a band, I just thought it was one guy with some overdubs.
Mm.
Because when I look at the Beach Boys and the use of 5 uniques of voices all coming together to make a bigger voice,
Mhm.
maybe it's because we live in this world where there's so much compression, manufacturing, auto tuning, that it kind of takes the little mistakes and souls out of voices. That maybe I think the Jonas Brothers aren't a great group as much as I think Nick Jonas is great, but as a group, I'm just kind of like, did it really need to be 3 of you? Like, what are you uniquely doing together to make yourselves that band? But in Backstreet Boys, I'm like, yeah, that's a wall of voices. That's like at
Mhm.
least 4 people that know what they do, what they're doing, and Howie.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, okay.
I'm not gonna shit on Howie D. Howie D is a nice guy. But
Uh,
yeah.
well, I guess the question is, it all comes down to taste or whatever, and,
Mm,
some things aren't like I just said, and I mean, you when you grow up, you start to realize this, some things just aren't meant for me to like. Like, it wasn't written
yeah,
for me to
yeah.
like, and I can see past a lot of things. I just think for me, just if something is
Mm,
so like very obviously um written to try to make money, super overproduced, no emotion behind it, like completely
mm,
emotionless, that is what I consider bad music. Otherwise, if I don't like something but someone puts their heart into it, then I can respect it. I might not listen to it or
mm,
like it. I mean, I think that the worst genre of music, and I'm still waiting to hear even a song that because I just feel like it's all that. It's all manufactured, overproduced. It's like bro country. Like the stuff that's just like singing about like, it sounds like a commercial for like a brand of
hot
like a
sauce.
restaurant. Yeah, or like yeah, it like literally saying brand names of like I'm like, "Oh, this isn't music. This is a commercial for something." That's what I would consider
The bastard
bad.
children of Kid Rock.
Oh yeah, I mean that's bad music. But otherwise, it's just music that doesn't appeal to me. Maybe it doesn't mean it's not good.
Matt was referring to Avril Lavigne before, where he says, "I recall Matthew Minigan. I hope I'm saying that right. From Wheatus, telling us about the band. He had to cover it on Patreon. It was more complicated than he expected. I can't remember what the fuck we were talking about. About
Well,
yeah,
Matt's referring to Hanson,
perfect. There you
Van
go.
Hansen,
Ah, Hanson. There you go.
who Hanson, we did that episode about it
Mm,
right at the I was ready to be like, okay, I'm gonna drop like Hanson's one of those bands I always disliked. Just
sure.
like, I was at an age, I'm like, oh my God, this song's annoying. It's these
Mm,
little kids, and everybody likes it for some reason. I was always annoyed by them. But then as time went on, now they're adults, they're brothers,
yeah.
they play, they're great. And I'm hearing all people whose music opinion I respect, like Hanson's great. You know,
Mm.
you got to check them out. They're great. And I'm like, finally, we're going to do an episode about Hanson. I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw away all my preconceived notions about Hanson and listen to the music and give them a chance. And then it was that very like week or something that all
Mm.
this stuff came out about Hanson. Like the drummer had a Pinterest of all places, with a bunch of racist and homophobic memes on it. Like,
Okay.
and then the guitarist was um just really like saying real shitty stuff about like it was like at the height and peak of the beginning of
Mm.
COVID, like uh, raging against COVID restrictions and stuff. And it was just like, fuck these guys. This sucks. Why? And it was called Hanson Gate, where a lot of
Okay.
their fans felt betrayed by them. And we did this episode of One Hit Thunder, like right at that. And then like all these Hanson fans then hit us up like, oh my God, you guys said what we all were feeling and everything because we gave them a real fair shake, because Matt Milligan from Wheatus and Matt Kelly are both fans of them. And
Okay,
so
okay, okay.
they had to deal with the reckoning of like, oh, these guys suck as people, but we still talked about their music in a respectful way. Anyway,
There you go.
that's a whole other conversation. Check out that episode if you want to know more about Hanson Gate. But yeah,
It's for me, it's just really easy to disconnect like the artist with human error sometimes, just because every time I hear Great Balls of Fire, I will literally have to remind myself he's a cousin fucker.
yeah,
You know,
right,
a pedophile cousin fucker. And
right.
when I hear Great Balls of Fire, I'm like, every time I'll have to say it again and again and again and again. And it's just, Beethoven was fucking weird too. Everyone's fucking weird. I don't
Well,
know.
are you
Yeah.
saying you can or can't separate the art from the
Oh,
artist?
sometimes I can, but also I'm thinking, it's unique that Hanson are like brothers, and you're saying like 2 out of 3 of them are, you're disliking that. That's kind of like, well, it's kind of easy to just say Hanson overall, eh. But just as a member of many bands, I'm trying to imagine like one guy in some band I was in really just doing something dumb, and then the rest of us pay for it. It's like, it's not that we're condoning the favorite behavior, but let's say years after the fact, it's just like, oh, such and such bass players or drummer did this now. I'm just like, I'm trying to imagine the other like 3, 4, 5 members of the band or the row crews or everybody else that really killed themselves to get to this
Well,
point.
yeah, sure. I,
Yeah.
I, I, I sympathize in that situation. I'm just talking.
Mm,
I'm talking to, you know, I,
yeah.
I have a really hard time. I mean,
Sure.
as most people do, I have a hard time separating the art from the artist. It's a real bummer when
Yeah.
because the song as a piece of art should be able to stand on its own. It's like, dude, I mean, I don't want to,
Mm.
go down this road, but like R. Kelly. Like I liked
Oh,
R.
gee,
Kelly.
okay, holy fucking shit. I have no fucking fucks to give about R. Kelly. That is another, like, I'm like, let's see, I don't know, different perspectives, but no, R. Kelly was trafficking children. Like
Yeah, I
that
mean,
like that
but
is a
I'm
line that won't defend at all. I'm like,
but
fuck
what
Space Jam.
I'm not. I know
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
defending. I'm not
yeah.
defending anything, but I'm saying, uh, the song, the remix to Ignition, like it comes
Mhm.
on, and just the sound of the song and
Mm.
the sonic quality and the memories you have attached to it and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what the answer is here. I'm just saying that, and I'm using that as one example. There's thousands of examples of people that were
Yeah,
terrible
yeah.
people that made an amazing piece of art. I mean, beyond music, think about, oh God, think about the directors of, or what, imagine if you could never the reckoning of like Harvey Weinstein or
Mm.
and stuff like that. Do you know how many movies that I love that guy was an executive producer on, and then I see his name at the beginning of it, I'm like, oh God, shit, this sucks. I love this movie, and it makes you feel. I don't know. I don't know the answer here. I'm just
No, me
saying that.
neither. Me neither. But every
I'm
time
saying,
Axel did something, I just was like, I'm not gonna throw Slash and Duff and the rest of
yeah,
Guns N' Roses under the bus every time Axel does something fucking stupid, because I'm
yeah,
aware of how hard it is to be in a team sometimes.
sure,
It's like,
sure.
yeah,
Different situation probably when
yeah.
it's multiple people, but when it's
But
one
Axel showing
person.
up late to a concert is not child trafficking for like 6 years. So like,
No,
there's a
no.
big difference there.
There's definitely levels. There's definitely levels here. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't expect everybody whose music I like. I don't expect them to be like a shining beam of light. Like they could be a human being without committing terrible
Yeah, yeah.
felonies. Like that's what I'm talking about. I mean, if somebody, I don't even care if somebody's an asshole. Honestly, to be honest with
Mm.
you, Ryan, this podcast, the podcast we do, meeting people, it's a pleasure that people are for the most part really nice. But if it wasn't for this podcast, I kind of don't want to meet people that I like. Dude, I'm going to tell you this right now. That
Okay.
that Punchline podcast, when the first
Yeah.
episode drops, we blatantly call out a band that when our band was, it's a band that people like, that when
Yeah.
our band was starting, we loved, and we like would travel to go see them and blah blah blah, like we really liked their music, and then played a show with them and they were assholes, and I
Mm.
never liked the band again. And
Ah.
we blatantly called him out on the podcast. Like, I'm kind of interested to see, like, oh boy, should we take that out? But I'm kind of like, no, it's the truth. And because we learned something from that. We were young. We were like, we had been a band for 2 years. Maybe we were 19, 20 years old or something, and learning. And we learned, and we say it on there. We learned, like, you got to be nice to people. Like, that was the lesson. We never want to be like that. And I
Yeah.
understand that people have bad days and stuff, but it was like a band. Once again, people will hear once it comes out, but we set up a show for them on Easter Sunday. They needed a show. They took all the money from it. It's fine. Were mean to us. Were left all their trash in the parking lot and like sped up, like garbage people, like complete trash people. And I'll never like their band. I still to this day don't like their band because of it, because we were so impressionable. If they would have been a little bit cool to us, they would have had fans for a lifetime. But yeah, to this day, I'm like, still hold that grudge, which is so funny. But you know, that stuff. But once again, that's just being assholes. It wasn't like they committed a crime or something. That you know,
No.
but there's different levels, you know.
There's different levels. I mean, we got to understand, like, when you call someone a criminal, there's a big difference between someone who blew up a bank and a purse snatcher. It's
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's I don't know. I don't get, but more importantly, for shit I do understand. I don't understand how people can be not welcoming and kind to somebody when they say welcoming and something's welcoming and kind to you.
Yeah,
Like, if
right.
someone came up to you and said, "Chris, I love the band Punchline," and your
Right.
instinct is to be like, "Fuck off."
I know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know, dude.
yeah, whatever. It's like, that doesn't compute to me, and it's not
Uh-uh.
because I've been starving for attention my entire fucking life. I'm just like, I've always wanted to be in a position where I could do that to somebody else, to give them that moment, because I remember how fucking rad it was whenever somebody was nice to me, especially
Yeah.
when I was starting out. Especially
Yeah.
when bands were only people and magical people and posters, and you see people in real life. There's a band called the Deviates that I met when I was a teenager, when I was 15, my first Warped Tour. And I remember the fucking name The Deviates, and I remember all their songs just based on this awesome first meeting
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
those years ago. 60 years ago it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't that cool? It makes all the difference in the world. You know,
It
like
does.
the to and I yeah, like you said, could you imagine someone coming up and I I like go sometimes I catch myself going like over the top. I felt like if I watch this back, me talking to you, or sometimes when I'm listening back to that rap section of Chris Makes a Podcast, I'm like, geez, can I
Mm.
tone it down a little bit, me? Like, it's a little, but when someone tells me that they like my band, like, I'm just so, I feel like
Me too.
over the moon. Like, I want them to know that, like, thank you so much. Like, seriously, that's so awesome. I really appreciate that, to the point where I'm like almost annoyed with myself. Like, oh, I could have said that, but been a little bit more chill about it. You know, I just, I don't know. I just want people to know how much I appreciate it. And, yeah, I can't imagine, like you're saying, to not be that way is just unfathomable to me. It doesn't compute.
Yeah, like, but at the same time, like, I guess the cool response would just be like, respect.
Yeah,
Just something like
which
that.
is fine too. That's fine too.
Yeah.
I'm saying there are people that will just straight up be assholes, and that's really weird,
I
you know.
I
But like,
know.
I mean, there are people who just have a more mellow personality. You might just be like, "Hey, thanks," and
Yeah.
that's totally cool. You know, like it's actually probably cooler than the way I handle it. I handle it like a goofball, I think.
Me
But
too. Dude, me
uh,
too. I'm like, "Here are my house keys.
yeah, right.
Would you like a kidney? Thank you so
You're
much for liking my band." And,
you're
you
my
know,
best. You're my best friend now.
by the time it finishes, they walk away not only not liking my band anymore, but losing all respect for me as a
Yeah.
human being based on the neediness I displayed by
Right.
showing the slightest amount of appreciation for what I
Yeah.
do.
I
Yeah.
think that's the way to be. I think that's rather be too far that way than the other way, you know?
Yeah, but also, I mean, come on. I'm sure Punchline has met some people even 25 years ago that remembers the great impression that you gave them all those years ago, just based on the lessons you learned
Well
from the dickheads that you'll name drop in episode 1.
I think that from the early years, and I think that maybe this has gone kind of the way of the buffalo or whatever you wanna say, but I remember
Mm.
back when we had a mailing address on the inside of our CDs, and people would send you I still have shoe boxes of fan mail, like a letter to you, and then you'd write them back. And we also did a lot of like, if someone ordered something, a t-shirt or a CD or whatever, write them a
Yeah.
personal letter in there thanking them, and people will save that stuff. I've had people like show it to me a decade later, or I remember, oh dude, this is a bad memory kind of, but
Okay.
back in, I guess it was 2003 or 2004, we have a t-shirt commemorating it, but I used to every day, I guess this was MySpace days. I would say, hey, give me your address and I would send postcards and letters out to people, just like, hey, we're in Indianapolis. Hey, thanks for liking our band, whatever. And people would get
Yeah.
that in the mail and be like, whoa, like, not like they didn't write a letter to us. I wrote a letter to them. And I thought, like, wow, every time I do this, I'm making somebody's day and making a
Sure.
fan for life. You know what I mean? Because imagine if like a band you liked just randomly wrote you a letter from tour. So I was doing that. I was trying to like really do that a lot, like in the like in my free time. Yeah, see, I did it to Matt Kelly. In my free time, do that. But then here, the sad part of this story, it was in I forget the name of the town, but so it was the morning, and we were staying at a hotel, and we had at that point it was a 15-passenger van and a big trailer. And so it was the morning. I was always the first one up, showered, probably ate continental breakfast, and guys were getting ready or sleeping or whatever. I was like, hey, I'm going to drive to the post office and mail these letters. And so I went somewhere. I think I passed the post office by accident and realized I had to turn around. So I pulled over and I tried to do kind of a U-turn, and I didn't see a one of those trucks that like has the thing that goes up to fix the telephone poles.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what happened next. I just remember waking up with two ladies banging on the window, and I had, in my U-turn, just got T-boned by that truck.
Ooh.
And I looked back, and the trailer was on its side, and the van was
Oh.
smashed, and then that was the last time, obviously, that I did that. At that point I was like, I'm not going to do the letter thing anymore. And that was a rough time. I do believe that we didn't miss a show. I think like the other bands that we were on tour with, like we each rode with a couple of them and stuffed some gear here and there, and like someone came to our rescue with a van. I think it might have been our friend Tony came from Cleveland and took us on the rest of that tour. I believe that's true. Anyway, our friends really came to our aid at that point, but I think that's when I stopped doing the letter thing. I was like, okay, I'm good on the letters. But yeah.
Speaking of, you were mentioning you just hopped in. Were there any bands that were friends of yours from from other states, or just the only time you would ever see them is when you guys went on tour together or played shows, and you knew shows with this band were coming up and it made you excited? Because there's
Yeah.
a band from New Jersey called the Waffle Stompers that I was in a band called The Real Deal they were together for like 10 years. I was with them for the last 2 active touring years. I technically still am in the band, I guess. We just don't really play shows anymore. But every time we would play with the Waffle Stompers or Stone Leak or Misled Bulbs from Japan, like there was this anticipation of, fuck, we get to see our friends again. Do you have any of those bands you would love to, call out, give a shout out right now to?
I mean, the list is so long. I
Oh,
mean,
so if you say
we
one, you're a dick, but we're not saying
yeah,
them all?
I
Okay.
mean, dude, there was just we got along and became friends.
Mm.
I would say we got along with 99% of the bands we toured with, and became friends with what's a good percentage to say here? Became actual friends with 50% of them. Like there's some people you
Mm.
get along with, but like maybe you're a little bit different of people, so you're not gonna. But I mean, just the list is very long. The first one I remember when we were like in our days of like self-booking our tours and doing whatever we could, to like my first experience of being on the road with another band and just like really bonding a lot. There was this band called Unsung Zeros from
Mm.
Florida who, we were both like in the same boat. Our bands were like both the same size. We were both experiencing all the same things. We were the same age. They were just like our Florida counterparts. And that was my first experience with that. But I mean, it's happened countless times since then.
Aw, well,
Yeah.
that's really lovely to hear. But you seem like a good bunch of a good bunch of guys,
Yeah.
and And
We're
I'm sure there was a time before you could afford hotel rooms. I know I never could. Um, eh,
Yeah.
like, when you're relying on the generosity of a potential stranger to let you sleep
Yep.
in their house, or the Walmart parking lot, the Waffle Houses, all this other stuff I'm telling you about that's making my back hurt
Oh,
simultaneously.
dude.
But
Yeah.
but back in the day when you had to ask people for places to sleep and stuff, do you guys, do you still have to do that? Because I'm thinking if I ever went on tour again, I would, but I am
Um
8 years older than the last time I went on tour,
we don't, before the
and
pandemic,
yeah.
we did a lot of touring. Like
Mhm.
right like we were back into the year before the pandemic hit, we did Spill Canvas tour,
Okay.
we did the Gin Blossoms tour, we did a Less Than Jake run, and we did our own little, short run. We did like a lot of tours that year, and we were back in the thick of it. But I will say that we stayed in hotels.
Awesome.
But
Oh.
except for
Oh.
the only exception to that would be if it was like someone we knew really well, who we
Yeah.
knew had lots of space, where it was like more comfortable than a hotel. But that being said, Ryan, there were 5 of us in the van and we'd get 1 hotel room. So it wasn't like the lap of luxury. I brought the air mattress every time because I really find comfort in knowing exactly what I'm sleeping on every night and not sharing a bed with someone, and just having, and I even had my own extension cord so that way I could charge my phone and whatever else I needed to charge right next, like I had a system,
Mm.
but yeah, I mean, getting a hotel room is pretty standard for us at this point. But
Good for
yeah,
you guys.
yeah, you know.
Good good for you guys. I remember the first night of touring I actually ever really did. It was late in the game. I think I was 26, and I had been played in bands by all the bands I was in. Never got their shit together, so we never really. No, wait, that's not true. I did tour when I was 22 across Canada once in a band called Ruckus Away. But that was kind of like but we were touring with a band called the Ripcords, and they knew everybody already, so all the places were pre-planned, and it wasn't like please help us. It was
Mhm.
more like, oh, here's the friends that we've been on that we've seen for the last 10 years. So
Mhm.
there was a real nice lecture there. But I remember the first night with Real Deal, we were driving to New Orleans, and it was the first trip. It was the first show. So we drove for 3 straight days to New Orleans, and I just remember the first night in a Walmart parking lot, not ready to go to sleep, kind of like I'm used to going to sleep when I want, and then just like, well, we're stopping now. Night, and just
Mhm.
wandering around the all night Walmart until I was too exhausted to stay awake. And then going into the back of the van, in which it doesn't go down, and you're just kind of sleeping here on the side like this,
Yeah, it sucks, man. It
slightly,
sucks.
slightly with the knee up like this, and just thinking, I'm a rock star. and,
Yeah.
uh,
Dude,
and
I that
yeah.
sleeping, sitting up stuff, especially if you fall asleep while riding, I
Mm.
used to get this thing, and I know a lot of other people out there get it, but I would get sleep paralysis. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis?
Is that where you're awake, but you can't move? And
Mhm.
they say like that's when people think they got abducted by aliens, like that's actually
Yeah.
what happens to them, sleep paralysis.
Well, sleep paralysis is the scariest thing ever, and it is, it'll happen to me a lot, like, if I was in the passenger seat, okay? And you have the seatbelt across you and your head's kinda hanging like this, and
Mm.
in your mind, you're awake. Your body's asleep, and you are desperately trying to scream to somebody to shake you so you wake up. And so the most that I can do in these situations is start going, like breathing, trying to breathe fast and heavy enough that somebody shakes me and I wake up. It is the worst ever. And lots of people experience it. And there's been lots of like art over the centuries that was created, like recreating what people experience. Because if you go to the Wikipedia for sleep paralysis, it is often known, and I haven't experienced this. I've just experienced like,
Mm.
somebody please wake me up because I'm awake in my mind. Um, it's called old hag syndrome because
Okay.
people always talk about see like that, like, because you can sometimes like slightly open your eyes too. So you like see a little bit, but people report slightly opening their eyes and seeing, I don't know why, but it's always an old woman sitting on their chest. And everyone reports seeing the same thing, like some kind of demonic old woman sitting on their chest. And it's known as old hag syndrome.
Wow.
How scary. It's like, I know that I think they made I think there was like a scary documentary that they made about this, but I also think they made a horror movie
They
about
must
this.
have. I mean, come on, it
Yeah.
writes itself.
It's the scariest. It is the scariest thing. And but that is my experience of falling asleep sitting up. I'm always afraid to fall asleep sitting up or in a moving vehicle because of that.
Wow, I've never experienced that. Oh, here's a Matt coming in with there's a fantastic documentary about it called The Nightmare. You know, I adore Matt Kelly. I'm sure
Yeah.
you do too.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny when you're mentioning like you know, when you meet somebody that like likes your band or whatever. I'm like, I'm always worried that I'm like, you know, like you're saying you're like, I'm very friendly to people. I'm very friendly to people too, but my mom, whose birthday is tomorrow, just in a few hours, she's turning 72. Um, and you know, my dad are two very different people. My mom wants to talk to everybody, loves everybody, says, "Hi, I'm just meeting you, but we're gonna know each other's names." And my dad is kind of shy and thinks nobody likes him. I'm the same person at all times. And it's horrible because I'll be like, "Hi, everybody, I want to be your friend. Everybody, high five. All right, high five." Then I'll walk away and then I'll just be by myself and I'll think in my head, why the fuck do you keep bothering everybody? Why do you do this?
That's
And it's
normal.
like, yeah, it's horrible. And it's
Uh,
like, and it happens all the time. So I'm just kind of like, I kind of like, you know, hanging out in you and Matt Kelly's world. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's amazing. And then I'll
yeah.
be like, oh, I talk too much, so I probably
No,
ruined their
no.
episode. And no, but that's me though. And I'm just kind of like, it's allowed me to be much better at my craft and whatever I do because of the constant self-judgment. But as I get older, I'm like, bro, you gotta fucking stop talking to yourself in a way that is unacceptable for another human being to talk to themselves about. Yeah.
Dude, you are not alone in feeling that way. I
Mm.
feel that way all the time. That's not, I think that's completely normal.
Yeah.
And mine is especially, dude, especially
Mm.
when I drink.
Mm.
I wake it is so rare now that I wake up after having drank a little bit too much and I don't feel so embarrassed. And everybody, and I could talk to everybody, and I'm a nice drunk person and or
Mm.
buzzed person. Like, I'm friendly, but that's what I'm embarrassed. I'm like, it's rare that I don't wake up and go, "Oh my God, I talked so much last night." And just, but everybody I talk to will be like, "You were fine." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just so embarrassed that I, you know, was loose," or whatever however you want to call it.
Yeah.
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 But you know,
Same.
I think
Same. If I can't remember every single second,
Mhm.
I just assumed it went terrible. And
Right.
I'm like, oh no, that's why I really cut back on the drinking like for the last little while
Mhm.
because I'm just like, it's just not worth the next day. It's not even like the hangover. It's like the fucking self-doubt. It's like it's
Yeah, that's the
crazy.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing, man. It's d dude, and
Mm.
and I cannot smoke weed. I just can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I mean, I was fine with it for a long. I can't. The second I do, I just think about, and some people will say to me like, "You just got to find the right strain or whatever." I'm like, "No, it's not." Now they never used to do this to me. I used to,
Mm.
smoke with my friends and giggle and eat snacks and laugh about everything. But now I think about, I'm the most self-conscious person in the world. I think about everything bad you could possibly think about. I think I'm a failure. I think I'm a whatever.
Mm.
And I never have these, I don't really have these thoughts. I mean, more maybe in passing or whatever, but the thoughts,
Mm.
it just, I get way too far inside my head to the point where I just got to a point where I'm like, oh, I can't do that anymore. And for some reason, it seems like the whole world has the opposite effect that it like that it does it, but it just crushes me. And I don't know. And drinking, drinking when I'm drinking, I don't feel, when if I'm drinking and having a good time, like I am having the best time. It's like
Yeah.
but usually I do have in the morning, I'm like, oh God. I mean, I get over it. It's not like I'm not hurting anybody. I just feel like I never want to annoy people. That is a nightmare
Yeah.
to me to think that someone goes, Chris Fafalios, oh, he's fucking annoying. Like, I don't know why I hate that. I I don't know why I want people to like me so much. Why I felt like I was like this punk who was like, um, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, but like, no, I want people to like me. I want to be a
Me
friendly
too.
person. I want to be liked. And is that a flaw? I don't think that's really a flaw, right? I think the world would be a better place if everybody was like that.
Actually, well, I have zero respect for people that can't take responsibility for their actions or nor give a shit if they've hurt someone. Like I
Yeah,
really
right.
that really grinds my gears is when clearly someone over there is very upset because of something else someone did and their attitude to it is whatever, fuck them. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
but they're not a common stranger. This is a friend of yours. Like, your actions affect other people. We're too fucking old to live in this whole kind of like, I do what I want. I do what I want. I'm just
Yeah.
like, fuck, I'm 38 in a month. I can't do that. I do what I want. I do what I want. Like
No,
actions matter. What's
yeah.
Matt Kelly saying? I'm simultaneously the biggest Matt Kelly fan and the biggest Matt Kelly hater of all time. Well, Matt Kelly, I got to say that I'm the biggest Matt Kelly fan, and that every
Yeah.
time Matt's on the show and we talk for 3 hours,
That
without fail, Matt, I swear to God, the next day you can ask my wife. I'm just like, oh my God, I brought talked his fucking ear off. This poor guy, like he just was online and he
uh,
didn't stop because he felt bad for me, and it's like literally, it feels good to just say on the internet and just fucking. I don't mind about embarrassing myself as long as some human being out there just says to themselves, "Holy shit, I do that too. Maybe I
yeah.
shouldn't." So I don't give.
Nothing you're saying is
Mm,
uncommon or not something that me and most
uh,
people I know would experience. I mean, dude, a lot of stuff that we do. I talk playing in bands,
yeah.
making podcasts, getting on this thing right now, and just talking and all this
Mm,
stuff. There's a lot of people out there who would never even consider like that. That would be like the scariest thing on earth, and it comes with self-doubt. Part of it comes as a little bit of a part of the territory, I think, right? Like
yeah.
if you're a person who puts themselves out there like that, and I don't think I think it'd be scary to not have, scary to meet someone with so much confidence that like
Oh shit.
everything I say is awesome. I don't care. I mean, I think that I kind of like envy that a little bit, but yeah, I know. I'll probably just like you're saying, I'll come off here and be like, God, I talked so much.
No, no,
When
you're
the
fucking awesome. It was
when
fuck it. No, it's
Yeah, this is
fucking
great.
great.
This
Yeah.
is great, man. I like
Yeah.
talking to you. I like that we become friends. I feel like we're friends now, right? We become friends
Definitely.
through
Fuck
this
yeah.
stuff. And yeah, but that being said, I'm not going to talk to you for 3 hours because I'm starting I've been on here for an hour and 42 minutes right now, and I feel like
Yeah.
I'd be impressed. Maybe Matt Kelly's still watching, but I'd be impressed if anyone was sticking with us. If you are, that's really cool. But I
Yeah.
also need to get. I've been a little bit sick the last couple days. It's not COVID. I took a test. They gave us tests in the mail.
Okay.
But it's
Cool.
just a little bit. I was stuffed up and whatever. And yesterday I was all Sudafeded up. And I don't know when the last time you took Sudafed was, but it helped me not be all congested. But I felt so weird all day too. Like it is definitely a weird thing. I mean, you can make meth from it one way or another. So I think that tells you something about it. But yeah, so I feel like maybe I should get some sleep pretty soon here.
Okay. Well, right before.
Anything before we go though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But before we go, we just need to do a little bit for future viewers or any viewers that magically pop on. Where can people find you on the internet and list everything, all your shows? Let's just list them real quick. Your band
Okay.
is Punchline. You're about
Mhm.
to have your 25th anniversary. It's fucking beautiful. Check out the song Universe. It is awesome, but also 21 Forever is fucking great too. There's this
Thanks.
Beach Boys ish feel in the chorus that I
Nice.
really, really like and respond to.
Nice.
Um, Of course, there is Chris Demakes a podcast, one of the finest fucking podcasts on the internet, especially if you love songwriting. My favorite moment in an episode is when Mark Hoppus brings up the fact that the What's My Age Again opening riff came along because he fucked up trying to play JAR by Green Day, and that blew my fucking mind. So little moments like that. One Hit Thunder's great podcast with you and superstar podcaster Matt Kelly. Is there anything else we need to mention about the life of Chris Fafalios for the Internet Machine?
A couple other things is I play in 2 other bands as well.
There you go.
I play in a band called Another Cheetah with friends I grew up with. A couple of Punchline alumni are in that band as well. We have 6 singles that we've released, and you can get them wherever you listen to music, all those places. And also I play in a band called Pack. P-A-C-K.
I've heard of Pack. Yeah, Pack.
And it is featuring members of the Juliana Theory and Zao, if you're familiar with those bands. And it's very much a hard rockin' band. And I think that's cool too. And what else do I have? Oh, the podcast, a band called Punchline. Please subscribe to that. We're going to be dropping the first episode very soon. And WeKnowPodcasting.com. If you have a podcast and you need some help with it, you want to take it to the next level, anything you need, theme music, graphic design, editing, which is an important thing. Consultations, anything you need, go to WeKnowPodcasting.com. We can help you out. And I also have an Etsy shop at iloveenamelpins.com. If you are a collector of pins, we got some cool pins. And by we, I mean me. I have an Etsy shop there. And I do a lot of stuff. I try to be busy all the time. But I'm on all the places. Chris Fafalios, all the things on the internet.
Seem happy though, man. You seem happy with the busyness. I think if you took all those kind of hats off, you would, I think you're a functional octopus. You need all these tentacles happening all at once. Is that true?
I think I worry sometimes that I don't want to stretch myself too thin, that I don't put the appropriate amount of effort into certain things that should have more effort in them. So that's what I worry about a little bit with that. But I think that I'm at an appropriate workload right now. I think that I can handle things because, I just work on things from the time I get up till the time I go to bed, except, if I'm hanging out with my girlfriend or friends, then I am totally in that moment. I let everything else go and just go do that. But otherwise, from the time I get up till the time I go to sleep, I work on things because I love the things I work on.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. I have to work on multiple things because if I'm like, I'm going to be a musician when it's not successful, I'm just like, fuck you, music. I kind of like dividing it because, when you divide the love, you're just kind of, it makes it fun and spontaneous and not just puts a microscope on if it's working or not. So
sure.
Yeah. I think that's the secret of life, ladies and gentlemen, is wake up and not go, if you wake up and go, hey, and in Chris Fafalios' case, I'm going to go for a jog and keep physically fit. Or in the Ryan Stick case, I am going to watch Pam and Tommy and eat cookies in bed and slowly but methodically gain weight. All right. Thank you everybody for watching Ryan Stick Show. This is very fun. The reason why this is called the Ryan Stick Show is because I had another YouTube series where I interview Matthew Gay Gubler. It was seen 67,000 times and no one knows what the fuck my name is. So if anybody sees this name, at least by default, they'll know that I lived and I existed. That's why the name of the show is this. Tonight I was joined by Chris Fafalios. Amazing dude, very talented guy, good at so many things, and it's including making me feel welcome on my own show. Thank you very much. You are a gifted host and a gifted guest.
Thanks, man. Feeling is mutual.
Awesome. All right, everybody. I'm going to say goodnight to Chris, but to the rest of you, internet land, I say live long, prosper, treat everybody good. We're in a fucking pickle, ladies and gentlemen. So the best way for the human race to continue is to not being shitty to each other anymore. Let's try to be the best to each other as possible, because you know what? We're all in this together. All of us. The world,
Amen.
we are roommates and nobody's moving out. So let's figure it out. Have yourselves a good night, everybody. And Chris, just stick around for a second. I want to say good night.
Cool.
Live long and prosper, ladies and gentlemen. I love you all. Good night and good luck. Ooh, good luck. I should watch that movie. All right. Bye.